The Spin-off Podcast Network. Contact Energy's good plans give you periods of free or discounted power. The more of your current energy usage you shift to these times, the more you could save. Learn more about these plans at contact.co.nz/goodplans. Conditions, fair use policy and eligibility criteria apply. Power refers to electricity.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
When the Facts Change is brought to you by the Spin-off Podcast Network in partnership with KiwiBank, the bank for Kiwi looking to get ahead in business and in life. A bank that delivers expertise in banking know-how, smart advice for business owners wanting to invest, grow their business or diversify. A bank that adapts with technology through the lens of its people and customers. It is a bank with heart that is driven by its purpose. Kiwi, making Kiwi better off. So much is changing in our worlds at the moment, not just around trade and geopolitics, but also technology. AI, artificial intelligence, is the watchword now for everyone in business and government. How can we use AI to make our lives easier, to do things cheaper, faster, better? And will it mean that, we'll all have so much time to do our stuff and we'll all have good jobs that pay us money? Well, it's time to dive in a bit more and find out what AI actually means, and from the context of a startup here in Aotearoa. This week on When the Facts Change, we speak to Lucy Pink and Hannah Hardy-Jones, the co-founders of Contented, a Christchurch-based startup who've sort of stumbled into the business of using AI to make meetings make sense, and for companies in various different ways, and local government and government, to be able to extract from these long meetings, conferences, presentations, ramblings into phones, useful information from audio. This week on When the Facts Change, we go behind the scenes and find out what you can build by plugging into these amazing AI engines. This week on When the Facts Change. Tēnā kōrua to Lucy Pink and Hannah Hardy-Jones, who join us in When the Facts Change from Christchurch. Lovely to see you both.
Thank you so much for having us. Lovely to see you.
Co-founders of Contented. My impression of it from a distance, Contented, is that it's a company that helps people use AI to better understand conversations, meetings, those sorts of things. Am I on the mark?
Yes, yeah. We would describe it as we transcribe and transform conversations and meetings into really meaningful outputs that actually you can action and make change with. So not so much about productivity as such, but more about getting more value out of the conversations that we have.
Fantastic. I'm keen now to find out how you got from woe to go, if you like, and to understand a bit better how startups in New Zealand who are using AI as a tool to help their customers actually do it. Firstly, Lucy, could you tell us your story about how you got into this business of co-founding an AI startup?
So it probably happened. I guess it all started during COVID. I was with my parents and obviously we had a lot of time, and I was in a privileged position where it was just me and my laptop getting served very great dinners from my mum. And it was the time where I decided to get into software engineering. It was something I'd always wanted to get into. So I had a passion project, which was I wanted to understand more about our products. So I started my first sort of, side project of building a marketplace, but more so around being able to capture data around the ethical ways of a product being built, so sustainability data. So I built a marketplace from scratch during that time, during COVID, which was a great way of me learning how to code.
Yeah, because your background isn't necessarily, what you call a traditional coding background. Tell us about, how you stumbled into this.
I was working for another startup called Debtor Daddy, which was in the glamorous area of accounts receivable, where I worked alongside Matt McFedries, who was just incredibly kind of passionate about solving the problem of getting businesses into the green. And so seeing somebody build their own startup from scratch and being along for that ride was incredibly impactful for me. So I guess that sort of visualization and being able to see someone else doing it made me go, hey, I'd love to be able to do that myself.
Now, Hannah, your story, because as well, it's not a traditional, through the coding into the IT tech startup world.
No, and I probably never would have seen myself doing this. So I studied psychology and I worked in HR. So my dream was to be Chief People Officer of Air New Zealand, and I had this plan to get there. And it really changed when I had my first baby. So she's just about to turn 12, and had just a completely out of the blue awful mental health experience following that. And that going through that sort of trauma really made me question this kind of corporate ladder that I was climbing, and I just couldn't see that path anymore. So I set out to help, at the start it was parents, new mums, to navigate just, motherhood and parenthood from a personal perspective rather than just about, looking after your baby and, feeding and etc. So that was my dream, was to better support new parents. And I created the Kite program, which was a micro-learning wellbeing app, which ended up developing into corporate wellbeing and to supporting people with eating disorders. So I kind of really took the experience that I had to become a mental health advocate and to create this product. So, and that kind of led me to meeting Lucy, really, at that point of us doing our own startups.
Do you have a meet cute story in startup world?
We do, don't we? So we were asked to present at an event called Coffee and Jam, which is to get people together in Christchurch, hear startup stories. So we were both presenting at the same event, and we got together and had a coffee to talk about what we might be talking about. And that was kind of our first, probably both of us felt like it was the first time we met someone really similar to ourselves from a passion and wanting to make a difference. All our friends, they're not in startups, so it's a very different life. And so we really connected over that event.
How is startup life different from regular life?
So I think it's that fact of potentially, because you're not employed, and so I think it's sometimes a lot easier if you are employed and you've got this salary coming in and you can kind of turn off and have a bit of balance. And I think we were both in that zone of not really having balance, but loving the passion. We were obsessed with these problems we were solving. And when we'd go to social events, you can't talk about that nonstop. People get really bored of that. Whereas we found together that we could just talk endlessly about these problems we were solving and never get bored. And so that was a really awesome experience, wasn't it?
And when Han says balance, it's also financial balance. Starting a startup is stressful in the sense that you don't have that regular income. So you are running it on a very, very oily rag. And I think that sort of being in that environment makes you very close to somebody because it's something you can relate to.
Yeah. So you mentioned you're obsessed with solving problems. Luckily, they're not crypto problems, so I'd be interested in listening to that story. I shouldn't be rude. There are some interesting crypto stories, but tell us about the problems that you were going to try and solve.
Yeah, I mean, for me with Kite, it was about just accessibility of support and information, and that being able to provide somebody something that could actually each day change how they were living and feel more supported and feel less alone. That was that fundamental problem that I was trying to solve at that point.
And then now, I guess, with AI, the problem we're wanting to solve with our new sort of startup and what we're doing at Contented, it was actually around us using AI and seeing a lot of other businesses. And this was back in early 2023 when ChatGPT was launched. And we were using AI with our own startups at the Kite Program and on you. But we actually started to get a lot of questions from family, friends, from legal firms, everything going, hey, how are you using AI so effectively? So our first sort of foray into this environment was actually just consulting. So we spent the first maybe 6 months of that year just going into schools, into firms, and just teaching people how to use ChatGPT. And at the start, we used to kind of go, why is everybody kind of behind the eight ball here? But actually, fast forward to now, and still people are still kind of grappling with how to use these AI tools coming their way. So we were kind of, I don't know what drove us to be so passionate, but it was this case where we were using it so effectively. We saw incredible results because we have to be so resourceful being startup founders. And it was like, we need to see and get other businesses, especially when you talk to teachers who are struggling to write reports or XYZ, being able to get them using ChatGPT to help with that was incredibly rewarding. So it was, I would say, the coolest part, of getting into this AI journey was just sitting beside incredible individuals and helping them use AI.
So how did you hone it down into a single idea or problem that you thought you could solve? What's the story there? Maybe Hannah.
So we were starting at the beginning, we would call them pain point zappers. So we were just going into businesses and going, tell us all your problems and we'll map them all out. And most of them can't be solved with AI, but let's just really dive into like what's happening. And then we started building tools that just solved some of those problems. So like it was almost like, which is the most valuable, which can we get a quick win with? And they would be these really specific tools for businesses. And what we realized was that the most authentic way to use AI is with our own voices. Like if you've got voice as an input, that is the most human part of us. And so we saw gains and businesses changing when we were able to take those voices and transform them. And one of our first customers here was Business Canterbury, which was previously Chamber of Commerce. And we had such an amazing journey with them. But every time we would be able to take, Leanne, the CEO's voice, and transform that into something incredible for their members or, communications, that was the moment that we wanted to focus solely on voice like that. And that's always then sat really well with us because it's so authentic and so human and so effective way to use it.
So you take an audio recording of, let's say it's a meeting or a presentation or a conversation, and you use your tools to use the power of AI to come back with some sort of report, summary, something that pulls out the key details. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. And I guess for us is because we hardly ever talk about AI when we are working with these businesses, we actually learn more about what is the tangible thing that Chamber of Commerce might need. So, for example, it could be the case where they need to have a press release after a big immigration policy that might impact some small to medium businesses. Or it could be that they need a quick update, or maybe they need a newsletter or a LinkedIn post. But the speed at which they can execute on that is incredible. Plus, it's also their terminology and how they speak and how they structure is baked in. So I worked really closely with the communications manager who ordinarily might have felt threatened with AI. But when you get to sit beside them and they can actually start to dictate what those outputs look like, it becomes a really great experience and they love using AI.
Yeah.
So can you give us some examples of, how some of the people who have signed up for your service have used it?
Yeah. So if you think about, a lot of the businesses, it's every conversation within their organization. So it's not just a board meeting and a traditional, a team meeting. It's every conversation. It might be even just musings in the car. So we see a lot of our clients, you might have a CEO that records themselves talking for 15 minutes in the car, and that turns into an action list plus a summary for a particular department, plus a blog article that they can post that morning. That journey of where a conversation goes. And so a lot of our clients are working with their own customers. So that's a really good use case, is one client meeting being able to turn into so many amazing different outputs. Some for a client for them to review. It might be an email following up, but it also might be something for someone else in that other department. Maybe it's, within the, compliance team that needs to turn that into something. So you see, we always talk about like sweating the asset, but it's each conversation is so valuable that there's just such a wide range of different outputs that you can get from it through Contented.
There's a lot of volatility and uncertainty out there, particularly offshore. But you know what? There's some good news. The New Zealand economy is recovering from a deep and painful recession. This year is predicted to be better than last, and 2026 looks even brighter. Lower interest rates are fueling a recovery, easing the cost of living and creating opportunities for businesses. Learn more about New Zealand's positive economic outlook at kiwibank.co.nz.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Spotify.
And how do you make it scalable? Because I can see how, you can individual person come to you and say, right, I want to do this. And then you have to sort of shape something specifically for them. But of course, if you really want to go big and get on the hockey stick, you need to be able to, I suppose you could call it, turn it into a product or a series of types of tools that are useful enough for people in their particular situation. So how did you try to make it scalable?
I guess during that consultation period where we were working with lots of different companies, we were actually building the product that is off the shelf that people can jump in and subscribe to now. Because, for example, we will work with a user research agency. And so we can then see that from, I guess, kind of a conversation, they need 5 different templates. And then once you kind of nail that module, now we can then offer that to other businesses that need user research requirements or marketing. So our marketing module was actually born from a time when we were working and still work very closely with journalists in the United States. So I guess we got really pushed to build an incredible tool when we met a man called Peter Lafort, who was serendipitously kind of in Christchurch, and it was his last day on holiday. And he saw our sign and he wanted to have a chat to us because we were just 2 girls building AI tools. And it was the start, which was, it was still very fresh. And Peter had just retired from Microsoft. And so we sat down with him and he was talking a lot about the fact that he's struggling to transform these, 5-hour council meetings into outputs for journalists. And when we showed him our tools, he was like, you guys are the ones to do this and help me. So he was very close with a man called Mark, who is the editor at the Palm Springs Post. And he challenged us to see if we could build AI capability to do this. And we did. I did it over Christmas. And the Palm Springs Post is still one of our best customers. And basically, they put a council meeting in and they transformed that into news from different ways. And we've got basically an entire module to turn and sweat that into something. So that module is now the marketing module. And businesses around the world can subscribe to that. So you basically kind of subscribe to Contented. We've got 3 amazing modules. And then if you are kind of a bigger company, you get to to kind of create your own output. So for somebody, it could be a massive change management canvas, or for some, it could be a bank-specific mortgage application template. The world is your oyster. But because we nailed it with 5-hour council meetings that need to be accurate, they need to be, recorded and outputted correctly, it's meant that we work incredibly well with financial conversations and things that also dedicate and need that accuracy too.
So tell us, though, how you have used ChatGPT to, give you the power to do this, because you can put a face, if you like, or a module on top of ChatGPT, but it's still using that basic engine. Just for those people who aren't necessarily familiar with the whole API, the idea of plugging into the back of the big engine, how does that work?
So we look at LLMs as the engine, and you're correct. So
LLMs,
large language model.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, it's that's the models, and those are the things that we plug into. That's the AI engine. And now we've got a whole variety. We've got DeepSeek, we've got Anthropic, we've got OpenAI, we've got open source ones, we've got Llama. You've got so many to choose from, and they've all got their own quirks, I guess. Some are potentially more secure. Some might not be as secure. It just
I don't use
depends.
DeepSeek either.
No, but these are the types of models that people can plug into nowadays. So we have spent a long time sort of understanding what models are best for us, but also our customers. And so we do plug into LLMs, but on top of that is, I guess, layers, and you might call it prompt engineering, but you can use different LLMs for things like accuracy and fact checking, and one template. So one conversation that's maybe turning into a 12-page board meeting minute output would go through, I guess, about 6 of these layers, and that might be used for creativity. It could be about structure and formatting, but importantly, it is things about using AI to then fact check and make sure that the outputs are perfect. So that proprietary sort of workflow is where our sort of IP is and what that looks like. And and that's what we've been building across the last couple of years.
So what's your ambitions here? Because in theory, there's so many businesses in the world who could find something like this useful, and so many councils and conferences where there are endless panel sessions and presentations and meetings that are being streamed live. They're being recorded. They're in the cloud somewhere. In theory, this could be really useful to a lot of different people. So how do you see the future? How big is your oyster?
Huge. I think we see Contented being part of, people's every day, like every conversation they have, they start thinking about Contented, and that's what we're seeing with our customers, is that the use cases they come up with just grow and grow and grow. We see ourselves being part of the world's most important conversations, so these conversations where, the UN, how effectively are some of these incredible talks and sessions being captured, and is anything actually really being done, deeply with them? So we see ourselves at that level, and then filtering down into every industry. And we've looked at whether we, focus vertically and look at one industry and really nail that. But really, conversations are so horizontal and cross over in so many different ways that that's the approach that we've decided to go with, truly horizontal. But we have, huge global ambitions for Contented.
And how much have you grown so far? Give us a sense of, how many people you've got, and what the trajectory could look like.
We've got around 120 businesses around the world using us. We do have a great uptake in sort of wealth management and financial firms. And that's usually because, it's funny, they all have podcasts too. So like Hannah was saying, because we are so horizontal, we don't just look at meetings as things to be documented. We look at things as a rich data source that can be turned into these incredible assets. So a podcast from a wealth management firm actually is incredible blog fodder, which is also great for educational pieces, as well as being able to kind of turn it into some amazing assets for that business, especially with teaching new advisors how to jump into the industry. So I think for us, that's kind of that area. And then we've got also everybody from news agencies and big publications over in the US using us. And they're struggling with local news deserts. There's communities that have no news. And so we do have an incredible couple of publications that basically have been able to provide news across an entire area of Massachusetts. And that is an incredible part and an amazing thing we can do, is be able to use our workspace to be able to create that sort of impact. But it is just kind of spread across a lot of industries.
And we're growing fast. We're still a small team, but I think word of mouth is incredible for us. You know, we get multiple emails a week introducing us to more incredible businesses, you know, and so at the moment that's a huge growth area for us too, because our customers start demoing and showing our product to other people in a cafe or, you know, at a barbecue was the other day, you know, to a CEO of a construction firm, and that's really exciting growth for us too.
Yeah. Now, just thinking about AI and, you know, the debates around privacy and around how secure information is. I mean, how do you get that across to your customers? And, of course, those customers are dealing often with their own customers. How do they make sure that people are confident that this is not being ingested into an engine and used or mined by someone else for whoever knows what?
Yeah, I mean, one of the really key parts is that we have really sort of explicit agreements with the models that we use in terms of training. So nothing is used to train any AI model. So that's a huge amount of comfort for our customers, and our platform is so secure that, you know, they're comfortable putting their highly confidential data, whether it's a doctor or a financial advisor, you know, and our tool, we're such good custodians of their data, and they can't find that often anywhere else. So we spend a lot of time, you know, in that space and ensuring that our customers are just so confident with using us and having that across their team.
We also, you know, because we also have to use devices, so mobile devices are great for us in terms of recording and getting that conversation. So with our mobile app, we've got amazing security features, like we don't store the audio in the mobile. And that's because the natural human risk of potentially losing your phone or an employee leaving, that data goes straight into a contented secure server. So it means that we do have to start to think about how contented secure not only in our own application, but in device and things like that. And we also teach our businesses how to ask for permission, guidelines around that. And I guess once people know that they're going to be able to have incredible human connection because they're not busy frantically writing things down, it does leave for a bit of freedom to, I don't know, to be your better self. So I think as soon as people can start to talk about recording conversations in that way, that's when it gets a lot easier. But that permission part is equally just as important. Just
finally, from each of you, what would success look like? Let's say in 5 years, I come back to you and we do this interview again. What would a successful contented look like?
I think, you know, having our tool used, you know, in government, local government, UN, like those sorts of conversations, like thinking about that impact, but probably also from a geographical perspective. So New Zealand's obviously our key market at the moment. So in 5 years' time, being able to see us being used in not just US and UK, but also countries where that don't normally have access to this type of amazing technology, you know, and non-English speaking countries. So being out for us to grow in that space would feel just so, you know, meeting success.
Lucy?
I think for us, we want to be able to build an incredible team. We have incredible software engineers, and I think for us, the reason why they are such great, we've got such a great team, is because they all come from really eclectic kind of backgrounds. Mia, who's our lead software engineer, she was a nurse before she was a software engineer, and she's incredibly empathetic. And when she builds and thinks of structured workflows, she thinks of them in an incredible way because she is understanding and trying to think like the customer. And we're really excited to be able to start to understand what other sort of team members look like that might not ordinarily just come from an IT or tech space, because I think AI lends itself incredibly well to those who think compassionately and creatively. So that's huge for us. And going back to what Hannah said, which is being able to, I guess, governments and local council, being able to get them using content is exciting because we've got some incredible features on its way, which is being able to draw insights from multiple conversations. So think of all those council meetings, being able to actually talk to those and go, how far away are we from reaching this LTP goal that we're looking for, or kind of being able to dig deep into those insights is really exciting. I think that's where the needle will truly move for a lot of our customers as well. So, yeah.
Lucy Pink and Hannah Hardy-Jones, the co-founders of Contented, talking to us from Christchurch. Ngā mihi nui, thank you so much for being on When the Facts Change.
Thank you.
When the Facts Change was brought to you by the Spin-Off Podcast Network, together with KiwiBank. Visit kiwibank.co.nz to find out how KiwiBank are making Kiwi better off.
The Spin-Off Podcast Network.